Hey guys. Okay, so this is going to be my fourth and final character video for Golden Girls, and this one is, of course, on Sophia Petrillo, who was played by Estelle Getty. And yeah, if you've been watching my videos, you might have been able to guess Sophia's my favorite character, easily. I can't really put my finger on a reason why I'm drawn to her above everyone else. I just love her so much. And I have so much thoughts on her, and I will talk about those in just 1 second. First, though, I do want to say most of this will be about Sophia on Golden Girls, but I will be covering a few things about her on Golden Palace and Empty Nest. I wanted to save the Golden Palace stuff for the Golden Palace video, but since Sophia was on Empty Nest after that, and I wanted to cover everything, it wouldn't really fit in that video either, so I figured this was the best way to do it. So let's get into it. First of all, some personality. Sophia is super sarcastic. She can honestly be super mean at times. Not that they don't all have their moments, but she probably, except for Blanche, I'd say, like, she has more moments than either Dorothy or Rose, I would say. Although I don't think she really always means to be, she just, we'll talk about that in 1 second. But she also has you might say twisted sense of humor. And she can be super sweet when she wants to be, but she doesn't usually want to be. The impression I get with her is I feel like she's really uncomfortable with, like, vulnerable emotional situations. Like, okay, there's, like, countless instances throughout the show where she's having, like, an emotional moment with someone, usually it's Dorothy, but not always. And it'll be all sweet, all the feels are happening, and then suddenly, like, out of nowhere, Sophia will, like, crack a joke or just say something totally out of context. Not out of context, but, like, she's clearly trying to change the subject. And it just reads to me like she hates being vulnerable. And I think that, again, I think that's just shown so many times throughout the show. And, I've always thought it's an interesting thing about her character because it's never said outright. Well, I guess it kind of is. A couple of times she sort of talks about how, like, she says things like how she'll make jokes when she's upset and stuff. So I guess that's kind of, sort of, like, related to what I'm saying. I don't know. It's just the impression I got of her character. I also think, in regards to that, she can be very emotionally tone deaf. I don't know if that's a word people say, but I don't know what else to call it. What I mean is, I feel like oftentimes, like, she'll say things without realizing what effect they have. Like, specifically with Dorothy, she said a lot of things that I think did insult Dorothy, even though, like, she didn't show it or say anything, but the impression I got, and I just sort of mentioned this in her video, the Dorothy video, was that sometimes Dorothy her feelings were genuinely hurt. And Sophia, I just don't think gets that. Like, even, like, a couple times, they're talking and Dorothy is almost, like, she's making it pretty clear that she's not liking it, but I almost feel like Sophia thought she was kidding, because, like, they make jobs with each other all the time. I just think Sophia sometimes takes it too far without really realizing it. Of course, the best example of that would be Season 7, Episode 5, Where's Charlie? That's when Sophia played that awful trick on Rose about her dead husband. Yeah, it was very cringy and very awful of Sophia, but it really read to me like she didn't realize the damage she'd done until later, because, like, even when Dorothy and her were talking, she was, like, laughing about it, and it almost seemed like she thought on some level, Rose knew that it was a joke. And of course, later she apologized and everything, it worked out, but, like, it really read that it took her a while to figure out what she'd, done was really bad. Now, I'm not trying to make excuses for her. like I said, she can be really awful at times. I just genuinely really believe that she didn't often mean to be. Okay, so before I move on to relationships, I want to talk about, I guess you could say it's to do with Sophia's health and her timeline. Okay, so one thing I feel like the Golden Girls did super well was with Sophia's aging. So Sophia was, of course, the oldest of the girls by far. She was like, I think 78 or 80 when the show started. So by season 7, she would have been 80, somewhere between like 85 and 88, I guess, something like that. 87? My mouth is terrible, I think. Either way. She really felt like she aged throughout the show. Like, I'm trying to think of how to explain this. When she was, like, in seasons, 1, 2, 3, she just felt younger. Like, she didn't feel like she was having as many, like, moments of forgetfulness or saying things out of context. But as the later seasons happened, it really felt like they did a really good job of just showing her gradually aging. But I also think that Sophia really didn't want to admit that. Like, I felt like she didn't, like, she made a lot of old jokes and stuff, of course, about herself, but I do think in general she didn't, like, she would deny any idea of, like, her maybe getting a little more forgetful or anything like that. Like, there was a bunch of times where she said something, well, one of the girls would say something and then she'd respond with something totally out of context, or, like, it would very much imply that she had forgotten something. And then she'd immediately cover up. And you could argue that her cover-ups weren't actually cover-ups, that they were just actually what happened. But the impression I got always was that she just really didn't want to admit, like, to herself even, that, she might have forgotten something. And I think this spreads to her, just not wanting to admit again that she had to change her lifestyle because she was getting older, even though maybe, she should have been slowing down. Because, like, through the whole series, there's a lot of times where the implication, we saw her doing, she had a couple jobs, she did a lot of volunteering. Like, it just really felt like she, was always going, for the most part anyway. And then, I swear, this is leading up to something. This is leading up to something, I swear. On Golden Palace, she was, at the start of the season, she was very active with the hotel. She was working, she was busy, and she seemed to be enjoying it. But throughout the series, there was a very sharp decline with Sophia. Like, later on in the season, Blanche and Rose, like, I feel like they, maybe I'm wrong here, but I feel like they did make comments about, like, Sophia not being able to do as much stuff like that. I know they insisted she go on a vacation at one point. How much of that was, I can't remember if that was why that was or not, but that definitely happened. Golden Palace is, a lot of things blend together on Golden Palace for me, but one thing definitely does not blend is Sophia. Like, she definitely felt like she had a very big decline. She felt like by the end she was getting a lot more confused. She was just a lot more just not, just not able to do all the things she used to do, which, not necessarily what would happen, but at her age, it seems very logical that could happen. And the reason I'm bringing this all up, I told you it was going to something, is because after Golden Palace, so that show ends, and then Empty Nest starts, and Empty Nest, all of a sudden, bam, Sophia is back at Shady Pines, which, yeah, very unexpected. I mean, like, there's no explanation of why that happens that I know of. I have watched Empty Nest, I've watched all of Sophia's episodes anyway, but You never know. I could have missed something. There were that I didn't love that show for the most part. I did get more into it, but I definitely could have missed something. So if I did, I'm sorry. Ignore me. This is all pointless. But here's my theory. I think that after Golden Palace ended, Sophia kept she kept declining. She couldn't work as much. It was putting more stress on her, just trying to keep up with everything. And eventually Blanche and Rose realized, and they're like, look, this isn't working, Sophia. And I think Sophia sort of probably eventually admitted it too, although she probably denied it at first. And then I'm sure Dorothy was called, and they talked about options, and I'm sure Dorothy either wanted Sophia to go to Atlanta with her and Lucas, or go to Atlanta and move into a nursing home there. Because even on Golden Palace, Dorothy wanted Sophia to come live with her, so I really could not see Dorothy putting Sophia in Shady Pines unless Sophia wanted to. I think she'd put her in a nursing home closer by, because I'm sure it wasn't any more, expensive. I'm sure that wasn't why. I just really couldn't see Dorothy not wanting Sophia to be, closer to family unless Sophia wanted otherwise. So what I think happened was Sophia just thought about it, and she honestly just told Dorothy, you know what? I've already had to make 2 big moves in my life, once from Sicily to Brooklyn, and then once when she moved to Miami. And then she just was like, I can't do that again. I mean, I could, but I don't want to. I could just picture her, just being like, she would rather not. She had friends there. She knew the area. She knew Shady Pines, even if she didn't love it. And I think she just decided that she'd rather that. And, I'm sure it was a big surprise to everyone, but they agreed. And, because, they weren't, it was Sophia's choice. And I do believe that they do visit her. Dorothy, Sophia, Blanche, Gloria, I believe they visit her. We don't see it, but I have to believe that, because I just couldn't see them not visiting her. And you know what? It ended up being working, I guess, for her, because on Empty Nest, she did seem a lot more, with it. It was because she seemed taking it a lot more easy. She wasn't doing as much stuff as she was before. So I could totally see that, turn it that, helping her just be, because she's not, trying to do so much all the time. She definitely seemed like she was doing a lot better. She just seemed a lot more with it, which that's great. She just, again, she wasn't not with it before. She just had a lot more moments, and again, not in Empty Nest, she just felt like she was not having as many forgetful moments, and just doing a lot better. I mean, she was obviously doing pretty good, because they let Carol had her babysitting her kid multiple times on the last season of Empty Nest. Well, the last 2 seasons, I guess. But I will say, she did seem like she was doing better, but she also seemed sad. I won't say she lost her spark, because she didn't seem unhappy, but she did not have the, she just seemed a lot, I seen that there was a lot of sadness just underneath that she just wasn't showing. I think she probably missed the girls, honestly, missed her family. But again, she didn't seem, I know I just said she was sad, and then I said she didn't seem unhappy, but she seemed happy enough in the moment. She just seemed there was a lot under there, under the surface, that she just really, missed and didn't really want to think about. Because again, I don't was the Golden Palace close? Like, I don't know where the girl, I don't, was the Golden Palace in Miami? I think so. So the girls are probably pretty close, but, you know, they're busy, and they do visit her whenever they can, I'm sure, but they're busy, and, you know, her family's all the way across the country. So I do think she does, you know, miss them, and yeah. But she seems like she's doing pretty good. I think she, I don't, like, I don't, again, I don't think she hates it at Shady Pines or anything anymore. I think she, you know, has accepted that this is the best thing for her, and she's just making, you know, making the best of everything, because she isn't going to just be miserable the rest of her life. That's not what she wants for herself. I will say, she didn't do a lot in Empty Nest. Like, she was there, but she didn't, she was lucky if she had some subplots. Like, she had a main plot, I think once, maybe more than once, but once I can think of, in, like, the Ballad of Shady Pines episode. That was a good episode, except for one thing. Didn't her boyfriend in that episode play one of her relatives in the past? I could be wrong, but I thought he did. If that's true, that's kind of cringe, but whatever, we'll just roll with that. We'll just forget about that. Maybe I'm wrong anyway. Maybe they just sound similar, I don't know. But yeah, I just did want to cover that because it felt, it was relevant to Sophia, and just, she had a bigger episode count than anyone else. And it was interesting how her story, it almost went full circle, because at the beginning of this first season of Golden Girls, she was just leaving Shady Pines, and then on Empty Nest, she's back in Shady Pines. And it was an interesting choice, and I wonder if they just made it because they wanted, like, her to be on Empty Nests, or if there was more to it than that. Me personally, I like it because it's just, I don't know. It has a very, like, you know, true to life feel, and I kind of like the idea of, you know, Sophia making the decision to go back to Shady Pines because she really didn't want to make that move. It is sad that, you know, she wasn't with her family, but, you know, I think overall it's, you know, true to life, because sometimes, you know, you do have to go into a nursing home, and, you know, I'm just glad that Sophia made the best of it and seemed like she was having a relatively good time. Okay, so now on to relationships. That was a really long rant, sorry about that. So, Sophia was married 3 times. First of all, she had the obvious one, Sal, Dorothy's father. He was, of the girls' husbands who had passed on, he was the one who most consistently showed up. He was in quite a few flashbacks, and, like not just flashbacks either. Like, he was in, I'm not really sure what to call them, but, like, so there was a few times, like, where Sophia, like, you know, did have, like, you know, conversations with him after he'd passed away, and that was, you know, we definitely got to see him enough that we got to see a lot of his character. And honestly, I didn't like Sal. I not very much. He annoyed me a lot of the time. However, I do think he loved Sophia, and I definitely think Sophia loved him. Like, especially, again, a couple times when she did have, like, those visions of Sal. Those were very touching moments, and the love between them was so clear. Those actors had really great on-screen chemistry. And now for her other husbands. So the first one was Guido Spirelli. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. They were an arranged marriage before she met Sal. There's some stories that she tells where Sal was also an arranged marriage, but I'm pretty sure it's canonized now, I think, that she did marry Sal for love. I also do think that Sophia didn't mind making up a lot of her stories. I think she just enjoyed telling stories. So yeah, Guido, they were married before, and then Sophia had that marriage annulled. And then there was the man she married on the show, and that was Max. That was a 2-parter where you know, like, they met at the beginning of the episode, the first one, like, but they didn't meet, they re-met at his wife's funeral, who had been Sophia's best friend. Sophia had a lot of best friends who passed away. Sorry, I just needed to comment on that. That's just so sad. Anyway, her and Max, they'd been fighting for years, but they made up really fast, and they got married really fast by the end of the first part of the episode. And that was okay, I guess. But the second part I thought was much better. Now, the first time I watched it, I didn't like Max because of this scene that it was meant to be comedic, but it did not work for me. It felt a bit cringy to me. So it really put me off the character. But on a rewatch, apart from that scene, which I still don't like, I really do like the character. I think, well, not so much the character, but I like how him and Sophia's marriage work. I like that they were almost sort of trying to, like, redo their past, it almost felt like. And then they realized that what they had was a great friendship, not a great romance. And that was just, I don't know, it was just very touching. And that, like, the scene, like, the scene where they realized that, and they were talking about, you know, her husband and his wife, and how they were what was missing from this picture. It was so sad and good, and I love it. But yeah, they ended, I don't think they actually got divorced. They just got sort of separated and ended as friends. So, you know, that I'm glad that worked out for them. And, you know, whatever worked for them. Okay, now for some family relations. So, okay, I'll get to Dorothy in a second, but I want to cover the rest of Sophia's kids first. So, Phil, we never saw him on screen, but they had a kind of strained relationship because Sophia had issues with his wife, Angela. Now, yes, in Ebb Tide's Revenge, she does say that she also has issues with Phil's cross-dressing. I personally find that to be out of character, and I don't buy it. I really don't buy that Sophia had an issue with that. There was no indication of that. Like, multiple times, you know, she'd comment on it. Like, yeah, she snarked about it because she snarked about everything. But she didn't seem like she disapproved of it. And, like, the issues were all with Angela. Like, there were, like, multiple times when, like, yeah, it was the time in Golden Moments where she was going to move because Angela left, and the only reason she didn't move in with Phil is because Angela came back. And also, you know, she did see him a few times. And in Ebb Tide's Revenge, I felt like it was almost implied that, you know, a lot of the reason she hadn't been in his life was because of the cross-dressing. And first of all, again, she was in his life, not maybe as much as she could have been, but she did see him. Like, she went to visit him that one time in season 1. Like, I don't know. It just felt off to me, that part of the episode. A lot of that episode felt bang on, like the way Sophia was acting, and honestly, the fact that Sophia was so upset about Angela for such a minor thing, that felt very Sophia-esque. But just that one thing at the end, I don't buy it personally, and I feel like that's probably a really unpopular opinion, but it's how I feel. And then there's Gloria. They had a okay relationship. Like, they seemed to get along when they were there. I know Gloria, like I said it before in Dorothy's video, Gloria, you know, and Dorothy both sort of were a bit jealous of the other one, thinking they were Sophia's favorite. And I don't think Sophia had a favorite. Like, she made a couple cracks about, you know, like, Gloria being her good daughter, but I didn't get the impression that she meant that. She also talked about, a few times, about Gloria needing a man. Again, I really don't get the impression she really meant that. I don't think she meant that seriously. I think she maybe thought Gloria might be happier with a man, but I don't think she seriously thought that she needed one. I think she was just being Sophia. Again, I think she said a lot of things that she didn't really mean. I think that's just her. I don't know. I don't think I'm making a lot of excuses for her. I swear, this is just honestly how I've thought about her for a long time. Okay, and before I get to Dorothy, I just want to quickly cover her relationship with her siblings. Angela, I love Angela so much, and I think they had great sister chemistry. Like, the first time she shows up, season 2, episode 12, Sisters, is one of my all-time favorite episodes. Love Angela. Angelo, on the other hand, okay, first of all, there's the continuity of them saying that Angela and Sophia were the last of that family. I'm 99.9% sure they reference that at one point. And then suddenly this other guy shows up that Dorothy, didn't Sophia say something about, like, don't you remember Angela? He was at your wedding, so Dorothy didn't know him very well. But still, like, so he wasn't, like, they weren't the last of the family. I know that there's a lot of continuity errors, and I know why they changed, like, I know why they changed that, because I know that the actress playing Angela couldn't continue with that. I'm not knocking that or anything. I'm just complaining with the continuity. Also, I didn't like Angelo. I really didn't. There was a couple of times where he didn't bother me so much, but most of the time I was like, really? Can you just exit my screen, please? Like, I didn't hate him or anything. He never really felt much for him. Okay, now on to Sophia's relationship with Dorothy. Yeah, definitely complicated. She definitely, like, again, I really do think she had trouble being, like, emotionally open with Dorothy when she was younger, which, again, probably affected Dorothy in some way. Again, not sure how, but I'm sure it did. But I think Sophia definitely does also. She gets too she's kind of obsessed with Dorothy finding a date. Like, she hired a matchmaker, for God's sake. I get the impression that she just really does worry a lot about Dorothy. She just wants her to be happy, and maybe she's going about it wrong, and she is a lot of the time, but I do get the impression that she just really does worry, and she really just wants the best for her daughter. And yeah, there's just, you could read a whole book about their relationship. There's just so much there. But again, the love they have for each other is so clear throughout. And I think the decision that Sophia made at the end of Golden Girls not to go live with Dorothy was, a big decision for her. Like, I think part of it, like, I think it was really sad, like, for their relationship, but also, Sophia felt like it was the right thing to do, and and I'm sure they still stayed close afterwards. It was just so sad, though. Like, that for me, like, I don't know, that was the saddest part for me, and it probably shouldn't have been, but it was. Just Sophia telling Dorothy that she was going to stay in Miami. Like, I don't know why that was so sad for me. It just was. Like, they were just, again, they were mother and daughter, but they were also, it sort of, a couple times they sort of talked about, like, them being, friends as well, and that was really touching, and I loved it. Okay, so now her relationship with Rose and Blanche. I have talked about this pretty much in everyone else's video, but I'll just cover it here quickly. Her and Rose, I really liked. Their dynamics just worked. I think Rose, I don't know, somehow Rose and her just really worked for me. I'm not sure why or how, just did. Her and Blanche, they had the weakest connection, but it didn't have to be. Like, they have a lot in common, in my opinion. Like, out of the four, those two just, I don't know, the way they can get about things, the way they deny things about themselves, I think they just have a lot in common there. And I also think that there was a big opportunity. I'll talk about it more later on the Golden Palace video, but I think on Golden Palace, there was a big opportunity missed to deepen specifically that connection between Sophia and Blanche. And not to say they didn't have any good moments. The best moment for me was with, oh god, I'm blanking. Sorry. Oh yes. In Sisters of the Bride, when Sophia told Blanche, like, was, pretty much telling Blanche that she needed to get over herself and accept her brother because, like, he shouldn't have to deal with that because he obviously wants her acceptance. I thought that was really well. I thought only really Sophia could have told Blanche that in that way, because I feel like she just hit the tone. I feel like Sophia often doesn't hit the tone emotionally right, like I said before, but this time she did. Hitting that just tone of, like, serious, but also keeping it light enough to keep, like, you know, Blanche from getting comfortable, because Blanche also, I don't think likes to get vulnerable very much. Really vulnerable. And I just think that was I loved that moment. It worked so great, and again, I just don't think either Dorothy or Rose could have done it nearly as well as Sophia did in that scene. But apart from that, again, they really just, I don't know, I feel like the writers really dropped the ball on their relationship, and it just, again, it has so much potential to me. Oh well, it's what it is. Okay. Oh, one thing I do want to say before I get onto my I need to talk about another few things before I'm done. But one thing I do want to quickly say is Sophia. I love how progressive Sophia is. Like, it, it was just so, like, refreshing to see her just, like, you know, accept people and just be progressive with those topics. And again, to see the show do that in, like, the 80s and 90s, so refreshing. I love it. Okay, now for some VSEs. I love Sophia's VSEs more than anyone else's. Like, she has so many good ones. Sophia's Choice, with, like, her breaking her friend Lillian out of the nursing home. Old Friends, which is my favorite. Like, it's one of my favorite episodes. I love it so much. It's the only episode that made me full out cry. Like, I've teared up in a few episodes, quite a few, but just that made me just full on cry. I love that episode. Oh, by the way, that episode also does give me a good example for something I said earlier. I was talking about Sophia being not always realizing how much her words were hurting and not meaning them to. Well, here's my example for why I think that. In that episode, she's being, you know, herself and being pushy and everything. And, like, this is the one where she meets the man with Alzheimer's, and she makes him cry at one point. And she immediately just feels awful about it, and she's awkward. Like, she almost, like, she doesn't really know how to handle it. But again, that really gives me the impression that she does not know the power of her words at points. Anyways. She also had, for VSEs, Not Another Monday, which I thought that one was handled quite well. Again, for the times, I feel like mental health wasn't what it is today, and I think having that shown and having the way it was quite good. Although, again, I'm not an expert. This is just what I thought. Yeah, her VSEs were so good. I felt like she was often at her best in those. Not always, but she really tended to come through, and that was good. That was good. Okay, and now to finish off, I want to talk about some favorite Sophia moments. So, okay, first of all, I want to mention one that I just noticed on a rewatch today. I was watching Home Again Rose, and in part 2, wow, Sophia I really liked her in that one. The way she talked, like, the way she's talking to Kirsten and the way she's talking to Rose, it really comes off like she's been in this position before, because she has. She was in the hospital quite a few times. And she just feels so, like, I don't know, she's just really on the ball there, and I really liked it. Also, another moment I liked her in were, again, a lot of her VSEs, I thought she was at her best. Not all of them, but quite a few of them, specifically Sophia's Choice and Old Friends. Oh, there's so many good Sophia episodes and moments. Two Rode Together, I love that episode. I love her and Dorothy in that episode. Oh, Clinton Avenue Memoirs was another one I really loved for her. That was one of the only episodes where she, like, you know, did admit that she might be forgetting things, but she didn't admit it happily. At least that's how I felt about it. like I felt like she just wasn't, again, she was admitting it very much not against her will almost. But one thing I really loved in that episode was at the end, first of all, that moment that she had with Sal was, it was heartbreaking. It caused me to tear up a little bit. But then at the end, when she found that Sal loves Sophia heart, she was just so happy that she remembered, and she was just, I don't know, I loved the way she played that scene. It was just so good. And yeah, there is, I'm sure, a million other Sophia moments that I could talk about, but I have gone on long enough. I feel like this is going to be really long. I kind of expected it though, because it's Sophia and I love Sophia. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have anything you want to say in the comments, please do. And I will see you soon with the Golden Palace video. Alright, bye.